Welcome to the Manifestation Lab. This is your host, Kelly Howe. From the grounded science to the mystical and unseen, we're investigating this big experiment we call life and finding what really works when it comes to manifesting a life that sets your heart and your soul on fire. Welcome to the lab. Hey, welcome back to the Manny Lab Pod. I am sitting down with Albino Sandoval today. Albino is a massage therapist here in Columbia, Missouri. He specializes in a technique called core fascial release. I had never done core before working with him, but I have been going to see him consistently for, I think, the last 3 months. I feel so much more integrated, relaxed. I'm having less stiffness. My mobility is coming back. My hips have been so incredibly tight. And every time I leave, I feel like I can stand up taller. I can take a deeper breath. I feel more spiritually connected. My intuition's more open when I leave. I can't say enough wonderful things about it. And the entire time when I've been working with him, I have been laying on his table wanting to ask him questions about, why are you doing that? How did you get here? Where are you from? I want to ask him all these questions. So I thought, rather than bug him during my sessions and distract him, I thought, you know what? I will just have him into my office and we'll sit down and have a proper conversation for the podcast. So Albino and I sit down today. You can find him at lifeissweetmassage.com. And we sit down today and talk about his life, how he ended up where he is. He calls himself a carrier of the sacred ceremony and fire keeper for native practices. So I'm really looking forward to asking him about that. And just a cool guy. And I think, like I said, if you have someone close to you doing fascial release, maybe it's him, maybe we can get you in with someone else. It's definitely worth giving a go. If you've had any sort of pain, tightness, just dis-ease in your body, you can't find the root cause of it. You've been trying a million different things. I really think fascial release is a way to get into some deep cellular memory, release old energy around trauma, and it's just really powerful work. So I hope you enjoy the conversation, and here's Albino.
Thank you.
Thanks for doing this. Thank you. I feel the same about your space every time I go in. The energy in your office is amazing.
Good.
Yeah. I mean, the smells are great. The bed or the table is super comfortable, but the energy is just good. And for someone like me, I can tell right away. So why don't we start with, I've been seeing you for 3 months now, went through the 5 series for the core fascial release. I understand you started with massage and then kind of transitioned into core. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. It goes back a little further than that. I started with indigenous medicine in New Mexico, where I'm from, and then that turned into, how do I, make this more of a financially stable thing.
Sure.
And so legally, you have to go through a school or require a license to be able to touch people. So massage therapy was the, most obvious way to transition into that world.
See, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
So tell me more about the indigenous medicine. What were you into before you got into massage? Or I would say before you brought the two together.
So the practice is called curanderismo, and it's a blended tradition that really dates back to Aztec tradition coming out of the Yucatan area in Mexico. And so, growing up native to the area in New Mexico, it's part of our heritage that we have various healing sort of traditions, herbs and prayer and body work, and just a lot of caring from your grandmother is a big part of that. But growing up in it, I wasn't really sure the background or the reason why as to, some of these practices or why they worked, or why, it was still even considered a doable thing when we have Western medicine.
Right. Why even bother with that if we
Right.
have all these pills we can pop over here?
So I grew up rather poor, and so it was always, a costly thing to venture to town, to go to the doctor, all that. So it was a lot of, hey, you don't feel good, go see grandma, and she usually fixed
She was
this
the
up real
medicine woman in
nice.
the family. Yeah.
And so growing up, I started to wonder about how this comes about, and going through my own healing crisis, I ended up finding a practitioner of the curanderismo tradition, and going through her sessions, I regained so much that I just needed to offer that to people. How do I do what you do? Because you've done so much for me, and so. I approached her and asked for an apprenticeship. However, she declined the apprenticeship but offered to teach me through partnership. And so that was a little different arrangement, because you're not at somebody's beck and call, but you're still involved in the learning process. And so it was real graceful of her to bring me into the tradition in this manner. So that really opened the door for the energy work.
Okay. How long ago was that?
That was probably about 10 years now, 10,
Okay.
11 years now.
And you can say no, but are you comfortable talking about your healing crisis or what you were going through, or even briefly touching on kind of what was going on?
Oh my goodness, there was a lot. It really was just a bad lifestyle, bad food, bad practices, just a bad lifestyle. I was a whole different toxic person, and toxic masculinity was a big part of that. And it took an actual physical jolt. I suffered a slip and fall that I wound up with a back injury for the 2-3 years. I still suffer from it today, but the bulk of the high acuity lasted about 2 years. So that was really it.
So was it a case of physical pain?
It was
that led you
pain,
to the
absolutely.
deeper
I started I started because Western medicine says we got to treat your pain, and so I came through an opiate addiction. Really was finding hope to get through all of that. I was, in a real dark place.
Yeah, it's not easy. Not easy work.
Just quality of life was really poor. I was almost bedridden. I'm 20 something years old at this point, and I was basically almost bedridden, and no answers from the Western images as to why the pain was being created. So they just continued to throw medication and treat the symptom, and nothing really got to the underlying cause. And so it was more going through a loss of the quality of life that led me to find the healer that reinstilled hope in my life, that allowed me to begin this track of recovery where I am now today. So 10 years later and still going.
Yeah, going strong, it seems like. Well, you're incredibly talented at what you do. So whatever combination you have going on, it's working. Right. It's really, really good. I could tell right away when I started seeing you. By the way, I think it took the universe like 3 times of your name coming up before I finally was like, okay, all right, I'm listening, I'll go. And obviously I've told you I've been just incredibly, pleased with the way things have been going. But it's so clear to me that when you go in, I knew I was going in for fascial release, but there's a much deeper spiritual environment in your office, I would say. So when you're working on someone, what else are you doing? These are the things, like, as I'm laying there and you're working on me, I'm like, I wonder what else he's doing. I know you're clearing energies and you're doing deeper work, I would say, than just touching and holding
deeper
things.
Work. It's real hard to explain. It's more about sensing what's going on with the person in their time and place, that they're on my table, and that really evolves around what goes on in their life at that time and place. the body really tells the story, or keeps the score, as they say.
Definitely.
So when we're in these, real heightened places of emotion, because of stress, it's really about trying to meet them on that level and coax the emotion out so that there could be a physical release to happen. Now, I'm not insinuating that I'm, sitting there as a therapist would do,
Right.
facilitating emotional release. It's really more about the physical touch of how much can a person take on that level to meet their emotional body and determine from there which way we go.
Right.
And
Right.
so it really becomes a partnership in that aspect of, what am I doing? I'm trying to move your energetic, emotional body into a state of more balance.
Okay. So, and that makes perfect sense to me because I'm doing the same kind of work, just in a different way, helping people move that emotion out. But, one of the things, like in the first session when you worked on me, at the end of the session, you said, most of the population is running around in fight or flight and you are not. So what did that feel like energetically or physically?
So it begins with the breath.
Okay.
It's all about the breath. When that's really the number one thing I'm trying to pay attention to is your breath, because so much is spoken through the breath. If there's a hesitation in the breath, if there's a shortness of the breath, if there's something going on the top end of the breath or the bottom end of the breath, it really indicates to say what this person is experiencing emotionally. And when somebody can go ahead and just take that full body breath, it really says that they're doing their work and that they are in a good place of physical well-being for the most part.
And not to say I don't run around in fight or flight at
Right,
times.
right. But
I just do a lot of work.
Right. It says that you do your work and understand that when you are in that fight or flight, you take that time to come out of that in a more cognitive or mindful way, rather than just I'm stressing. Okay, now I'm eating.
Right.
Okay, now I'm vegging and watching TV and just totally checked out. It's more invested than that for people to really say, oh my goodness, I am stressed out and I need to take breaths to calm this. Because it's the vagus nerve response is really the scientific explanation behind all that is, stimulation of the vagus nerve and saying, hey, let's get ready to run. Let's get ready to fight. Let's get ready to do these things. And it absolutely takes the breath to help communicate with the nervous system to say it's time to let that go.
That makes sense. It's a quick way to notice that you're kind of off and come back to the body to dial down that stress response, right? And from what I understand with the vagus nerve, it's connected to so many, like from the brain all the way down to all these different organs. So when you can, now I might get this backwards. Do you stimulate the vagus nerve to get relaxation, or is it the other way around?
It's the other way around.
I feel like it's like backwards of what my brain says, but either way, you can work with that nervous system level and get all these different relaxations and get organs rebalancing, because that one nerve really does innervate so many different spaces in the body, right? It's pretty fascinating. So I want to back up just a little bit. Maybe talk to me about core fascial release, maybe just about fascia. Do you say fascia or fascia?
So fascia.
Fascia. The fascia.
The fascia.
Yeah. Maybe talk about like why that's important.
I guess to give you an imagery, it's the 3D crocheted suit of the body.
Oh, I love that.
It's what makes us have form. If we were skin and bones and muscle and like it'd still be like this weird puddle of
like a glob.
Yeah,
just a blobby human
with weird things poking out because we have bones.
Right.
So the fascia is what actually gives it the structure, and it goes all the way down to the cellular level. It wraps around the muscle fibrils and makes its way out to the muscle bundles and around the whole muscle belly.
I didn't
and
realize that. I didn't realize it went down around each. Is it like each cell has a little
almost
net around
to
it?
each cellular level. It's a
Wow.
little bigger than the cellular level.
Okay.
But it really is at the microscopic level to say. And it makes its way all the way out to be the underlying tissue between the skin and the rest of the muscular body. It's like if anybody's gone through dissection or butchered anything, it's this white webby substance that's kind of just in there. And there's some good videos out there. Gil Headley does the fuzz speech, and he's a great dissectionist that introduces you to fascia. So he has a lot of great videos out there to be able to check out.
Check him out.
But it's really this material that's semi-liquid, but it's also semi-solid at the same time.
And I've heard that it's kind of a crystalline structure.
It is a
also.
crystalline structure because it changes form and it breaks down and it builds up and it shifts in these just amazing ways that you really wouldn't imagine any other material to do this.
Yeah. So when you're working on somebody, let's say someone has a chronic pain that nobody can figure out, what does working with the fascia do?
The nerve endings are tended to end inside the fascia. That's where it breaks up into the microscopic level. So a lot of the fascia gives the feedback to the nerves.
Okay.
And when there's sort of a chronic pain cycle that's going on, a feedback loop, it's really about the fascia trying to trigger something from the nerve to activate a muscle to say, hey, you need to relax, or hey, you need to activate. And so it's sort of this communication going on between the fascia and the nerve, trying to say, you know, something's not right here and we're not sure what it is, but something needs to happen. And so people are like, ow.
You're right. Owie, that hurts. That hurts. So why would somebody pick core fascial release over like a deep tissue massage?
So there's kind of a lot of misconception. Deep tissue, people are often thinking deep pressure, sit there and grind on the muscle. Deep tissue refers to the location of tissue in the body.
Okay.
Your fascia is deep to the skin. Your musculature is deep to the fascia.
Okay.
Your bones are deep to the muscles.
Yep.
The muscular, system. So it's really just defining where something is. When we talk about deep tissue, we're just saying, okay, we're going to rub the muscle that might be under something. So if you're used to getting your trapezius rubbed, maybe somebody's going to rub your rhomboids, and that's your deep tissue, so to say.
Right.
Fascia is more about the matured touch to feel the fascial system either holding or releasing within the body structure itself.
You're in communication with that fascia, what it seems
yeah.
like you're like having a conversation with it.
It really is a developed touch that you have, sort of the same as craniosacral therapists. They have this pulse that they understand and follow, and some people just never develop that touch, and so you're not a good craniosacral therapist. So it works the same with fascia. You seem to develop this understanding and this touch for the biomechanical structure that's in there that works, and when you can feel it, then you can bring change to it, and that really is the main reason to go for a more fascial session. But the structural integration is about tearing down those postural patterns and helping to rebuild them, whereas a deep tissue massage is really more about just exchanging fluids within the muscle tissue to bring about better muscle health in that way.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. So one of the things we talked a little bit about the emotional release that can come with it. I mean, I've had a couple of those where they were like, you just feel this big blast of emotion come out. So what is your perspective on, if you find a tight spot or something that just feels like, something's there, is that from your perspective, something that's been tight, like maybe since a trauma, or how would you describe that?
So that's hard. It goes to really talking to each client individually,
Okay.
where they're at. We dive into a bit of a history, or it's also a bit of an intuitional sense on my part, where I can say, hey, this feels a little bit older, just because of maybe the thickness of the feel to the fascia, or it's real sensitive, so therefore it's probably a deep emotional thing that I'm getting at, as opposed to the actual structural thing. So it kind of just depends really on situation basis as to what comes up for not only my client but also myself. We're in this together, and each session is a learning opportunity for me. So trying to figure that out, it's always different.
Yeah. You can tell there's a big intuitive aspect to what you're doing as far as sensing in, and again, having that conversation with like my body when you're working on me, but also verbally talking, like, what are you sensing here? What are you feeling? I know that there's a million reasons that people can be suffering from pain, like going back to the diet and, just a toxic world. But do you find, generally speaking, that people that have a lot of tender spots are holding on emotionally? Can you make that correlation? I know it's not 100%, but do you see that?
I do see that, absolutely. Yeah. And, Noah Koresh's theory, who's the founder of CORE.
Oh, okay.
He kind of has this theory that fibromyalgia is the disease of losing your breath. Somewhere along the lines, life has taken your breath away, whether it was an actual physical traumatic fall or something, or you experienced a big emotional jolt and you can't get your breath back. Maybe the loss of a loved one, or the loss of a relationship, or a diagnosis of some sort, something that just takes your breath away in life and you can't get it back. And so we circle back around to, we were talking earlier about how important that breath is. And so there's theory that, fibromyalgia may be that loss of the ability to breathe. And it does make sense, in a sense of, when I see a client on my table and they do complain of the fibromyalgia, they are very shallow breathers. And so there's a lot of the session is built around just getting them to breathe into their full body and experience what that might be for them. And they get real dizzy, and you got to be careful about, getting them off the table and things. But it really is putting them on a richer sort of oxygen in the body, richer fuel. So it's like upping your octane in your car from low octane to high octane. And you just get different experience.
Yeah. You are very gentle. Firm but gentle, right? You do what you need to do. But have you ever had someone have a big flashback or anything? Because just knowing how much the body stores things and it's connected to memories. Have you had anything like that happen?
Yes. I tend to be told that sometimes that's me going too deep, too fast, too much. And so going through my training for my Core 4 certification, I had this experience with a woman who completely lost track of the session, and she lost time. She didn't really remember how she got home, and it was just this huge sort of experience for her that I almost became scared of, what am I doing to people if this is the result? But
Right.
she came back she finished out the sessions, the 5 series, and just was reassuring that it was a good experience for
Yeah.
her. It just was what it was, and
Yeah.
it can be alarming for some people to really go through some of these emotional, I don't even know, emotional experiences
Right.
that I tend to stir up through a session, or we stir up together through a session.
Right.
Um, I tend to also say that the work doesn't happen on the table. The work begins on the table, and it continues to happen as you leave
Definitely.
my office and go about your days.
Definitely. It's like you initiate it
Right?
and start
It's
helping it kind of move out.
right, right.
And that was actually one of the things that I don't know if your intake is different than the rest of people at Life is Sweet Massage, or if you guys all do the same one. Is yours?
It's basically the same
Yeah.
one. It's really more on the case to case basis when you sit them down in the office and actually get the words to come out of their mouth, that you get a
Right.
sense and a feel for
Yes, it's
what's
different than just
really
like typing it
happening.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was really impressed with the intake form, just the questions that you all
Right,
asked.
right, yeah. Through the Life is Sweet and the Vigaro website, they really did a great job
I was so
of
impressed.
being trauma aware.
Right.
So
Trauma aware. And even by asking those questions, I don't know, I felt like it gives people a sense of empowerment as far as how do I want this session to go? Like you'll ask, like, how do you want the lighting? Do you want me to talk? Do you not want me to talk? Do you like deep pressure? I just was really impressed with that. And I think part of being trauma informed is just giving people that awareness and those options. But I've just been impressed top to bottom. So I guess that's what I would say about that. So one of the things that you mentioned is being a carrier of sacred ceremony and a fire keeper for Native practices.
yeah.
Can you talk a little more about that?
So I recently graduated, I guess, in the Curanderismo tradition.
You got your cap and gown, graduated.
But what that looks like is I've been honored with the ability to conduct ceremony now. It's kind of a big deal.
And what does that mean, ceremony?
That means I'm responsible for people's prayers and bringing them, to sacred space, and allowing and facilitating the development of sacred space for prayer to happen for people. It's really it's kind of this big responsibility that you have, because you're responsible for opening the door for people to their higher power, to their creator, whatever that might be, whatever force you want to give words to say that there's something divine and beyond this 3D understanding that we have. So
for someone on their healing journey, in your words, why is that important? I know it's a big question, but
So it goes to it kind of goes to the tradition. We have this belief that there's 4 major bodies. There's the physical body, there's the mental body, there's the emotional body, and there's the spiritual body. If you have a disease or an imbalance in one of these 4 major bodies, there's oftentimes a trickle-down effect. So somebody that's often experienced the spiritual death, then they'll have the anxieties and the depressions that affect their mental standing. They have swirling thoughts or racing thoughts or self-injurious thoughts, or these kind of thoughts, and then it starts to affect the body with the diabetes and the high blood pressures and the cancers and all these diagnoses that we're starting to see just commonplace, because people aren't paying attention to themselves as a whole being.
Yeah, I started my healing journey with food, like cleaning up my diet, cleaning up the toxins in my life. But I feel like eventually, you follow that and go deeper and keep asking why and why and why and why does this happen and why does it work like that? And eventually you do have this moment where at least I felt like I got this big picture of like, oh, that's why we need to be connected spiritually, you know. But it did start with food for me, and kind of going down that path of going deeper and deeper and deeper. So the four bodies makes a lot of sense to me. And I think that people a lot of times are trying to feel self-love and initiate some sort of healing experience without a spiritual connection. And I just, I love what you're saying.
It's not really working that way.
Right.
You know,
You
it's
just
like
hit a roadblock.
Yeah, it's trying. I don't know. I don't even know an analogy for that. It'd be like trying to make soda where you have sugar and you have water, but there's no carbonation.
Right. Yeah.
This isn't soda. You know,
Right.
you have all the right ingredients, but there's just that missing thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is. For me personally, it's just spirit, it's creator, it's the divine, and that sort of gives breath into everything that we see before us, you know?
Yeah. I'm in that, going back to the work that you do. I mean, when I am being worked on, kind of in general, no matter what I'm doing, I'm very visual now, and I kind of get images of things. And that's one of the things that has been so easy to see, is how when spaces release, it's that divinity can like fully fill that space up.
Right.
Does that resonate
Yes,
at all?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's this clouded, gunked up, sort of icky gray matter that you can envision when you're working on it, and then when that releases and clears out, then there's this empty space. Well, you have to fill that empty space with the divine love or something light, because then you're just leaving the openness for that icky nastiness to come back into.
To rebuild. Yeah.
So if you're making space, absolutely, something has to fill that space in. Why not fill it up with something good?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love those images that I get. They're really pretty. Quite beautiful. So when you talk about doing sacred ceremony, is that something that are you doing this with an individual? Do you do it with groups? Is it just kind of in general, you carry that responsibility and that energy and that initiation now?
It really evolves year to year. It depends on what spirit calls for. It's not a lot of my choice. I don't know how to explain that. It's about me kind of getting out of the way, putting the ego down, trying to go within and listen to that inner voice to understand what it is Spirit wants.
Spirit wanted me to do this damn podcast, and I did not want to do it, Albino. So I can relate. I know.
Understand.
Yeah.
It's really just about, what that inner calling has to say.
Yeah. So are you being called to do anything right now?
Oh, I'm here.
There you go. I like it. What specifically is the firekeeper part of it?
So in sacred ceremony, fire is typically a central element. And with the native traditions, if ceremonial fire goes out, ceremony's over. So it's really about keeping that energy going. And it's really about keeping fire through wind and rain and sunshine and all the elements. We work to keep that fire going. It's a representation of the fire that burns from within. It's reflecting the sun so that we can be the luminous beings that we are.
I love it. I'm writing a book right now, and I'm considering naming it Soul Fire. That resonates. Let's see. Oh, I know what I wanted to ask you. So one of the things when you're working on me and you're like kind of like working towards a pain, you always say, I'm not going to symptom chase too much. So why? Why is it because there's like a process and a formula that you're following? Or?
Yes, there's a formula, but it's easy to get lost in the symptom. It's easy to say the pain is here, and you work there and work there and work there and work there, and then it gets overworked, and then you go home and you're sore for a couple days, and then you feel okay, but then it's like it never goes away. The symptom chasing doesn't really seem to get to the root cause. The root cause seems to be more of a systematic reason.
Okay.
It's more about the anatomical chain than it is the actual
Okay. Could you talk about that?
space. So Tom
really talk about
Myers has done great work in building anatomical meridians for us outside of the Chinese medicine concept of meridians.
Sure.
What he talks about is how do we create these lines in the body that go from one place to another in as little muscles as possible. So he connects the tongue to the big toe kind of thing. And along that line, there could be more than one adhesion, I guess, to say that it's holding from one place. And so it's pulling, say, if you have adhesions from your big toe, it could be pulling on a neck muscle. So we're going to work out the toe, but we're also going to work out everything that's along that line because it could move because the fascia is alive. That adhesion can move through the fascial network before it fully gets released.
Like the actual knot or adhesion can actually change location?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's through the living tissue. So if you can imagine this crystalline structure that's crochet-like, and where it's thicker is where there's more of the tissue, the bundle, the fascia would be like knots within the crochet. And so when we move it, when you're trying to untangle a knot, sometimes that knot slips down a couple rungs or it moves up this way a little bit.
Interesting.
And so you have to work down here. Now, it may not be the same size that you started with, but, you got to figure out if it all the way comes out or if there's still residuals left in there.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. I've heard people talk about fascia being carrying information. Is that anything that...
There's some research. I'm not exactly sure who I'm quoting here or who research comes so much. I love this stuff. I just eat it up that I forget who I'm even
do that too.
talking about here. But there's some research and evidence is starting to show that because the trauma is endured by the physical body, there's a record keeping that goes on with the mental emotional as well. And there's thinking that the fascia is that record keeping network because the brain can only do so much. As wonderful as it is, it's already working so hard that to catalog and keep all those memories and emotional memories in there would be overwhelming to the brain. So it kind of uses the body and the fascial network as a storage bank for that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's in there. If there's not a lot of times, but there's several times that I've been working that I can work on somebody's calf or their ankle, and then they say, there was nothing on the network. It happened this morning. There was nothing on the intake, and I'm working on it. And then the guy says, oh, yeah, I had 7 surgeries on this ankle.
Oh, my. Yeah.
He probably slipped his mind or he forgets about it and doesn't put it on the thing, but it's something that he walks around. I noticed that, through his gait that his foot was a little crooked. And then working through the tissue itself, there's a lot of thick, scarry sort of tissue in there. And I thought to myself, I said, this guy probably had an ankle injury at one point. I didn't realize it was
7
that
surgeries.
severe of an injury. But yeah, it wasn't until we moved on a little bit. And then he said, when you were working on there, reminded me that I had 7 surgeries down there.
Yeah.
That explains a lot of what's going on along your whole right side chain,
Yeah.
So
It's fascinating, isn't it? Do you have any books, like if someone wanted to learn more about this kind of thing, like the fascia and holding on to memories? You mentioned The Body Keeps the Score, which is such a great one.
Really, Noah's books are a great place to start. Noah Koresh has great books out there. Fascialrelease.com is really where you're going to find them. I think Amazon has them out there, but really just Noah's books, Noah's work.
All right, I'll check those out. I'm always fascinated.
He's got a great book I think that you would really appreciate.
Yeah.
It's getting better at getting people better, and it talks about how to facilitate a more safe therapeutic environment so the therapeutic relationship can flourish. Mm-hmm. It's a really easy read, but it's good information.
It's a good one. Yeah. I think for people going to practitioners too, it would be good to read just to know what is possible, you know. And like I said, I do a huge intake now, and I go into things much differently than I did when I first started. I kind of was like a little bit like too gung-ho, I think, in the beginning. And I do things very differently now. But, you know, like I said, the intake that you all do is phenomenal. I mean, I think I really, really was impressed. And I talked to another friend of mine that has gone to you, and she said the same thing. Like, just to even, I've never been asked that by a massage therapist. Like, do you like the lights up? Do you want me to talk? Do you not? You know, I've never been asked those questions. Do you want me, what was one of the other ones? Do you want me to tell you when I'm going to touch you or something? It was just it was like, yeah, these are really great questions.
So, you know, it's hard because those questions are really set up and geared towards more of the integrated experience or the Swedish relaxation kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I'm going to talk to you in core.
Yeah.
We talk. We get you moving, you participate. There's, you know, I'm sorry. You're not going to check out of your body in a core session. That's not what we do here.
No. I think I'm more of thinking like I've been to a couple of people that were like telling me their traumas while they're working on me. And I'm like, oh my God, what is happening here? You know?
Yeah, no, that's,
you know, so.
Yeah, boundaries are real important for us as practitioners to uphold and try to keep our stuff in check. And that goes back to why it's important for practitioners to do their work. So we're not spilling it all over our clients.
Yeah. So what do you do to take care of yourself?
Oh, my goodness.
So many things, probably.
Well, you know, to be honest, since COVID, it's been a hassle and it's been hard. My self-care has kind of suffered since then, and I'm really having to go back to the drawing board and reevaluate what's working and what's not for me. Nature is a big part of my self-care, though. Absolutely need to get out to nature. If I don't have nature, even for that, 5 minutes between a session, I'm stressing.
Just get some fresh air.
I need it. It's hard. Coming from New Mexico, I grew up really in a rural outdoor area, and so moving to the city like this was a little bit of a culture shock. And seeing how close people live one on top of another, and how not knowing your neighbors when you're so intimately located, it's kind of a weird thing.
Strange.
I grew up and my family was my neighbors, surrounded me, so it's hard not to know who the people next door are. But I definitely make nature a large part of my self-care routine. If Columbia is a great place. There's many parks. There's many trails. It's easy to get out. The excuses are there to not get out for me. So
yeah. How did you end up in Columbia? What brought you here?
Well, Spirit brought me here.
I believe that.
And I'm going to just go ahead and leave it at that for today. Spirit brought me here.
Spirit brought me here. All right. It's fair enough. It's good enough for me. Yeah. So just one more thing that I wanted to ask you about, and I kind of talked to you a little bit about this just the other day, and that was, I used to, several years ago, I went through a training where I was taught to, hold someone's hand, and then I would also tap with them and on them, and I was getting such huge amounts of energy transfer. And at the time I wasn't as skilled at releasing it and getting rid of it. So I don't touch people anymore in sessions just because I don't need to. I mean, with what I do, I don't need to. Right. So I get enough energy, from just sitting across from someone. But do you get those energy transfers?
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
I do. That's why nature is so important.
Yeah.
It's getting out to the creek and getting my feet in the water. Yeah. It's getting my bare feet on the earth. It's building a fire and, cleansing through that. I participate in Sweat Lodge. Ceremony is such a big part of my life in order to keep that in check and under control.
Yeah. Any quick tips for someone if they feel like they're like absorbing energy that they don't want to hold on to? Probably just come back to the breath.
Come back to the breath.
Breathe it out.
Come back to the breath, visualization. Love your mother. Your Mother Earth is there to hold you. Mm-hmm. Let her do it.
I love that. And do you visualize like sending stuff back to the earth? Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Part of
I'm like, Albino, I want to know what you are doing.
I do those visualization techniques, but also part of it is the tradition. In curanderismo, we recognize the Western direction as that place of letting go. And so through those visualization techniques, I will often go into the Western direction and let the sun set on some of those worries and problems, and let it go.
For someone like me that doesn't know about the tradition much, so just facing west and really just visualizing releasing and giving it back to Mother Earth.
It's really not about the direction. It's more about that last moment when the sunlight last touches the earth and it flips to darkness.
Okay.
That's what you're trying to visualize, is that transformational energy. That power has the power to transform whatever's going on in your life, to set the sun on those things that no longer serve us.
Okay, so if you can't actually get out in the sun that day, can visualizing the sunset work the same? I mean, maybe not the same way, but yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we all have computers and Google, man. Google a nice sunset. You could probably get better than what this overcast Missouri days give us sometimes. So, it really is, how far do you want to take it? What is your intent? How much are you putting into your actual work?
Right.
It's out there. Get creative. Get
creative. Yeah. I mean, I find visualization to be just so helpful in combination with the breath and like breathing into that gunk like we talked about and exhaling it and allowing that higher light to come in and kind of flush it and wash it away. It's just been really powerful for me. But like I said, years ago, I was earlier in my practices and I would try, but I never got the same kind of just release, and that's one thing I would say about your sessions also, I think I told you, is I feel like I'm even more deeply integrated with that breath, and like I can breathe into my left calf now.
Right.
Whereas I felt like there was kind of some holy areas that it wasn't as easy to do that with now.
Well, that is part of the mantra. Together. The first session is, touch the core, find the breath, and then pull the points. So if you're finding your breath in every session and you're finding new places to breathe into, then that we're doing great work.
We're doing it.
Yes.
We're doing it. Are you familiar with Louise Hay's work?
Remind me.
So Louise Hay did a lot of work with putting consciousness in like different ailments and different dis-ease with different parts of the body. Mm-hmm. So, we've talked a lot, you and I, about like the left side and the right side, left side being feminine, right side being masculine, correct? Right. And so she would put, go one step farther with like a right shoulder injury might be something to do with the mother, but like kind of that energy of like carrying the weight of the world, right? Or something like that.
Yeah,
so do you see that with different body
absolutely.
parts?
I gotta say, Louise Hayes is a big influence on Noah's work.
Okay. So, I love her. Yeah.
That bleeds into his trainings and, a lot of what we do. So, yes, I'm familiar, but no,
Yeah.
I haven't done my own work to sit down and read her work.
No, I mean, I really was just asking if that was part of your philosophy or if that's something that you noticed,
Yeah,
right?
no,
Like somebody that with
absolutely.
left knee that might be, I think that's one of like kind of the ego struggle gets stuck in the knee or
Yeah,
something.
I mean,
Yeah.
there, these we hear it all the time. There's all these sayings throughout the world: walking on eggshells or
Right.
digging your heels in, and just a good kick in the pants, or all these
Right.
things that we hear and talk about. They actually hold true in the body.
And things like heartache,
Yeah.
right? And broken heart. Like it actually
Broken
does
heart.
physically
Yeah.
feel like that.
Yeah, I
Right.
find that with people in their sort of thoracic area, that it just feels so heavy that it's like, man, y'all got some real big heart stuff going on
yeah.
here. And do you want to talk about it? Do you want to release it?
Right.
That's what I try to do, is create the safe space where that can be released.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about it, it don't leave the room.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want to talk about it, well, I hope you can use your energetic body to get that stuff to release and move
Right.
through, because it's just weighing you down.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I would say definitely, when I went through nursing school, I would never have believed that kind of thing, but 100% I do now. Like whenever I hear somebody has an injury, I'm like, I wonder what else energetically is going on.
What is their personality trait that ties into whatever
Right.
that injury or ailment
Yeah.
might be? Absolutely.
Yeah. I see it be very accurate
Yeah.
a lot of times. And, yeah, I'm always
No,
coming back to my own body and asking those same questions like, oh, what am I afraid to let go of? I think hip is like being afraid to move forward. And I'm like in this huge transition with my business. So I'm like, well, I could see that,
Yeah, yeah.
lots of things that I'm kind of resisting / walking towards all at the same time.
Right. Moving forward through life. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here.
No worries.
Is there anything that we didn't cover that you would just, somebody curious about your work or about, anything that you just wanted to mention?
Not really. I mean, you can find me here in Columbia at Life is Sweet Massage Therapy. We're on 4th Street downtown. And
Yeah, I love that space.
probably the internet is going to be the best way to get a hold of me, or the office, or whatever we need to do.
So
to
just look
set
up
it
is it lifeissweet.com? Life is Sweet Massage.
I think it's lifeissweetmassage.com.
Yeah. Well, I thank you. I mean, I've told you a million times, I think your gift is really wonderful, and
Thanks.
people can really benefit from this kind of work. It's a very physical experience, but it's deeply emotional, deeply healing, and certainly feels like a spiritual experience all at the same time. So I can see how those 4 energetic, those 4 bodies are all getting their work done and integration in your sessions. And I thank you for what you do.
Thank
you for being here with me.
That's really validating to hear, those words, and that's exactly what we've kind of strived to do as practitioners. So thank you.